We're going to talk now about the poor state of marketing briefs by introducing you to some of our findings from the largest and first global study into briefs. It will give you an idea of where things are going wrong and where some of the disconnects are. First, let's take a look at the sample from our research. We had 1,731 respondents from 70 countries fill in our robust survey. It's the first global view from 945 marketers and 786 agency folk. More than half the sample has over 15 years experience working for either a brand or an agency. And the brief that we're talking about is the marketing or client brief, the brief that goes from a brand into an agency, not the brief that an agency may develop internally. We're now going to show you some of the key findings from our study. The views of marketers will be represented in orange, and the views of agencies are represented in blue. And the statement from the questionnaire sits up here somewhere. So let's get into it. Firstly, what does each party think of briefs? The statement here, the brief is one of the most valuable and paradoxically most neglected tools marketers have to create good work, says that we acknowledge briefs are important, but that we don't give them the attention and priority they deserve. 90% of marketers in orange agree with this statement, and 92% of agencies in blue agree.
However, there's disagreement and disconnect between marketeers and agencies on what a good brief looks like. Globally, 8 in 10 marketeers in orange think they're good at writing briefs. However, in blue, only 10% of agencies agree with that same statement. Now, we're not here to choose sides. However, we do want you to ask yourself, why is the gap so large? Why is there so much lack of alignment between marketers and agencies when it comes to briefs? Agencies might think their clients aren't good at writing briefs. However, are they giving that feedback to their clients? Are they speaking up? Are they pushing back to poor briefs? And are marketeers checking if their briefs are landing with their agencies? Are they checking if the people who are getting briefed understand what they're being asked to do? Here's another stat. It's on strategy. And we believe that a good brief summarizes all the thinking a brand has been doing. It's the last step in the strategic process and should capture all the decisions a brand has been thinking about and has been making. When it comes to strategy, more than 3 in 4 marketeers, or 78% in orange, believe that their briefs provide clear strategic direction to agencies. However, only a sad 5% of agencies agree with that same statement. So that means that the vast majority of agencies, or 95%, is not clear on the strategy driving the brief. Now, good targeting has always been super important in our profession, but especially in these times of reduced budgets and audience fragmentations, it's really important to get your audience right. However, there's lack of clarity on who the target audience is in briefs. Only 35%, or 1/3, just over a third of agencies is clear on who the brief is targeting, on who they need to go after. And in orange, only 2/3 of marketers themselves are clear on target groups in briefs.
And it may seem intuitive, but for the first time, we've been able to understand the negative chain reaction of a poor brief. This is from analysis of almost 1,700 open-ended responses. A poor brief leads to shallow creative thinking because an agency spends too much time trying to interpret the brief rather than work from the clear direction that's been set in it. This time spent on interpretation means agencies go wide. They take a shotgun approach to their creative response rather than going deep on a narrow playing field. Often this results in a bunch of mediocre ideas presented back from the agency that no one is super happy with. We end up going through additional and unnecessary rounds of concepting and approvals. We spend more time and money than we would need to if the brief was clear from the outset. The motivation levels drop from all those involved, and often we get to a point where we just need to get things out the door. And ultimately, the work that hits the market isn't as effective as it could be. Another key finding from the research is that the creative process is not being used for its intended purpose. 60% of marketers agree with the statement the creative process is often used to clarify the strategy. This means that too often strategy is ill-defined before it hits the agencies and marketers are using the work that comes back from the agencies to decide which direction they want to head. We're all up for collaboration between the two parties, but choices in the brief need to be clear. It means that rebriefs are occurring too often for anyone's liking. 69% of marketers and 73% of agencies agree. We want to try and avoid the dreaded R word because rebriefs can suck the life and energy out of projects. And all this is leading to a huge percentage of marketing budgets being wasted, up to 33%. 33% of your budget could be going to waste due to poor briefs and misdirected work. That's a third of your marketing budget you could be spending better. The estimate from marketers globally here is around 30%, and from agencies, it's around 37%, but it's far too much.
We wanted to understand what the most important component of a marketing brief was. So we asked people to rank what they thought were the most critical elements of a brief. Above all else, both agencies and marketeers want clarity on objectives. They want to know what the end game is. What does success look like at the end of the comms activity? To help provide clear direction, every marketing brief should contain clear objectives. We're going to talk about the different types of objectives in a little bit. Ranked distant second and third were insights and target group definition. Briefs are just a means to an end. It's the idea that needs to make the impact in the real world and drive marketing effectiveness. However, there's a lack of clarity on how ideas will be evaluated. Only 32% of marketeers in orange and only 12% of agencies in blue are clear on the criteria that will be used to evaluate the work at brief stage.